Growing up, I always felt like a shadow in my family, living in the constant glow of my siblings' achievements. Every birthday, every holiday, while they received the latest gadgets and extravagant gifts, I was left with the bare minimum, sometimes even needing to buy my own necessities. I loved my family deeply, but the sting of their favoritism was an ever present reminder of my place in the world. The smell of old paper filled my nostrils as I rummaged through boxes in the attic, dust motes dancing in the beams of light streaming from the small window. It was just an ordinary evening, or so I thought. I didn't expect that something as mundane as reviewing old family documents would bring my world crashing down. The soft creaking of the attic floor echoed as I leaned over, pulling out a weathered cardboard box marked Memories. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, there were faded photographs and letters, reminders of a time when everything felt simpler, happier even. I carefully sifted through the contents, tracing my fingers over the smiles captured in those photos, family vacations, birthdays, holiday gatherings. I remember sitting there, a mere background figure in all of it. Look, isn't that your brother's first trophy? My mom's voice chirped in my mind as I scrolled through a photo of him grinning ear to ear, holding that gleaming piece of metal that I had never once received. My heart twisted in a way that was all too familiar, the sting of jealousy mixed with love. What about me? I whispered to the emptiness of the attic, the ghosts of my family's favoritism hanging heavy in the air. As I continued hunting through the box, I discovered a thin, yellowed envelope hidden at the very bottom. The paper crinkled in my grasp as I pulled it out, the weight of it feeling strangely ominous. I realized then that I had never seen this envelope before. My heart raced with intrigue and apprehension as I peeled it open, revealing a bank statement that sent a chill coursing through me. It was like a punch to the gut. The bold numbers stood out starkly on the crisp white paper. $100,000. My stomach dropped, and I felt as though I had been punched in the chest. It was earmarked for my siblings' education and wedding. My mind raced as I tried to process it. What? $100,000? I muttered to myself, feeling the world slide beneath my feet. Did they really expect me to accept this? Anger bubbled beneath the surface as betrayal washed over me. The dreams I had nurtured, my aspirations that had been quietly stifled, suddenly surged forth like dammed water breaking free. Had they forgot my hopes, my desires? Every year I had watched as they celebrated my siblings' accomplishments. You are going to be the best, we believe in you, they would shout, their voices filled with pride. And what did I get? Hand-me-downs, my old toys, and the occasional compliment that always felt forced and hollow. We don't have enough, they would say when I asked for something I wanted, my heart sinking a little deeper each time. Maybe next year, sweetheart, they would add, but next year never came. Heart pounding in my chest, I closed my eyes, the envelope trembling in my fingers. I could see it all so clearly now. The countless evenings spent in the shadow of their family celebrations, the way they praised my siblings' every move while I quietly faded into the background. You should be more like your brother, they would say, oblivious to the fact that their words were like knives cutting deeper every time. I felt my cheeks flush with resentment. Guess I'm just the spare tire, huh? I scoffed bitterly to myself, chuckling sarcastically, though tears threatened to spill over. I opened my eyes again, staring down at the damning document in my hands. It was not just about the money, but about the love and support that had been so freely given to someone else all these years. The betrayal twisted in my gut like a live wire, sparking anger I had buried deep inside for too long. Suddenly, I heard footsteps creaking in the hallway below, and my heart raced. Is someone up there? I froze and quickly shoved the envelope back into the box. The thought of confrontation made my palms sweat. I held my breath as the footsteps faded away. I didn't want anyone to see me like this, not with eyes clouded by hurt and resentment. It was just me and the shadows in that dim attic, but I felt a fierce determination rising within me. They would never understand the dreams that lay quiet inside me, dreams that I had learned to tuck away. If they cannot see me, I will make them see, I whispered fiercely into the silence. With the bank statement still rattling in my mind, I clutched the sides of the box, breathing deeply. My family had cast me aside for far too long, living in a world where my sibling was the golden child. No more, I declared quietly, feeling an unfamiliar resolve building up. The shadows may have masked me for years, but I was done letting that happen. The anger was a fire igniting my thoughts, and I envisioned not just revenge but transformation, a reckoning I would orchestrate. As I exited the attic, determination led my steps. Life would no longer happen to me. From that moment forward, I would take charge and write my own story, one that would rise from the ashes of neglect and betrayal. They would remember my name, and they would understand the weight of their favoritism. I was ready to emerge from my shadow and claim my place in the light. The night settled over Hawthorne like a heavy blanket, muffling sounds from the world outside. And as I sat on the couch, The glow from the television illuminated the living room with an artificial warmth that offered no comfort. I was alone, the silence punctured only by distant laughter filtering through the window from the yard, where my sibling entertained friends, flaunting the treasures amassed through hidden funds. Seeing them laugh, carefree and oblivious, pierced through my heart like a shard of glass. I forced myself to focus on the flickering screen, trying to drown out the rising tempest of emotions swirling within me. Just talk to them later, I whispered under my breath, barely recognizing my own voice. I had tried to convince myself that the right words would somehow resurrect my dignity, that confronting my sibling about their newfound wealth would clear the fog of resentment that clouded my heart. But I was more terrified than I liked to admit. Every time I envisioned the confrontation, the image of their dismissive grin made my stomach churn. After what felt like hours of futile television watching, I finally pushed myself off the couch, the fabric clinging to the fabric of my shirt like a second skin, and made my way outside. The cool air nipped at my cheeks. Under the stars, the laughter grew louder, ringing out like an invitation that I could not accept. Their friends were sprawled out on the yard, drinks in hand, discussing travel plans and exotic places that shone like jewels in their eyes. My sibling was in the center of it all, storytelling and boasting, adept at weaving tales with an elegance that begged for admiration. Did you really find a way to afford that? One friend asked, leaning in, eyes bright with envy. Please, it was no big deal, my sibling replied, leaning back slightly, crossing their arms with a self-satisfied smirk. You guys should see the places I will go, it's my time to shine. I couldn't take it anymore. Rage exploded from deep inside me, an unwanted inferno threatening to consume me whole. The facade I had painstakingly built was cracking, and as I strode closer, words bubbled to the surface, itching to escape my lips. Is that all you care about, showing off? The confrontation lingered in my throat, thick and bitter, my hands trembled by my sides. At my call, they turned, the gleam catching their eye, and the expression shifted instantly, a blend of surprise and annoyance marking their features. What do you want? They asked, their voice rising over the din of laughter. Instantly, their smile faded, and I could feel the weight of their gaze assessing me, sizing me up like a threat. I want to understand, I said, the heat bubbling beneath the surface as I crossed my arms against the chill in the air. What makes you think it's okay to flaunt your money while I'm working my fingers to the bone, trying to make it? My siblings' laughter faded into an uncomfortable silence, and they straightened, the mask of carefree arrogance returning as they puffed out their chest. You think this is my fault? You're just jealous because you can't appreciate the good things in life. We are family, I erupted, my voice rising like a shot from a starting gun, startling the group. Yet, you act like I don't even matter. You don't think I deserve a piece of that? Their friends quietly exchanged glances, interest peaked like spectators at a spectacle, but when I looked at them, my heart crumbled further. I felt like an outsider in my own family. You're being dramatic, my sibling retorted, rolling their eyes. You act like I hid the money from you on purpose. You're just upset that you did earn it. Well, life isn't always fair. Get over it. Get over it. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I felt cornered like a wild animal with no escape. You're going to Europe while I toil away, craving approval from our parents. They don't even notice me anymore. They are so busy with you and you don't even care. Maybe you should just try harder, they said, their voice dripping with condescension. My blood simmered. You think I owe you something? I'm earning what I've got. Why should I share? You should share because it is right. This isn't just about money, it's about the respect that has been trampled. I fought to keep my voice steady, each word laced with intensity. It's about my effort compared to your entitlement. They scoffed, brushing me off as if I were no more than an annoying child. Wow, really? You think throwing a tantrum is going to change anything? Keep dreaming. Disbelief swirled within me, a cyclone of hurt and betrayal. How could they be so blind? You think this is a tantrum. I choked out trying to swallow tears of despair, but my disguise was slipping, unraveling before their very eyes. I'm tired of being invisible, tired of living in your shadow. Their friends had fallen silent, the feigned laughter and light-hearted conversations now extinguished, the air between us heavy with tension. Unable to bear the contempt in their eyes, I turned away, feeling the pitch of defeat settle deep into my bones. What was I doing? The sting of hopelessness led me back home, leaving echoes of fury behind. With each step inside, despair clawed at me. My parents were in the kitchen, unaware of the turmoil tearing at me. Did you talk to them? My mother asked casually, stirring something in a pot. I stood there, hollow, as if part of me had been stripped away. I tried, I whispered. My father barely glanced up from his newspaper. Well, keep at it, don't give up, he said, his words brushing past me like a breeze. Their indifference stung sharper than any confrontation. I sulked upstairs, a storm brewing inside, a swirling mass of shame and fury. They had no idea how hard I had worked to earn their approval, how each moment felt diminished by their disregard. I had lost the respect I craved, and my siblings' arrogance only sharpened the edges of that loss. I wanted them to see me, to understand my pain, but I realized then that I was swimming against an unrelenting tide, and every attempt left me feeling more isolated, more desperate. The realization consumed me. If they would not listen now, perhaps it was time for a different kind of reckoning. I thought I could push past the pain, but one weekend shattered whatever resolve I had left. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across our dining room table where I sat, a silent witness to the whirlwind of moments I barely felt I belonged to. As the rich aroma of lasagna floated through the air, I could hardly stomach it. My stomach twisted painfully, as if the food itself was mocking me. Quietly, I stabbed at my meal, catching snippets of my parents' conversation, filled with excitement and anticipation. Can you believe how quickly they are planning everything? My mother exclaimed, her voice a melody of joy, completely oblivious to my presence. The venue alone took weeks to book. It is going to be the wedding of the year? My father nodded, his mouth full of garlic bread, but I caught the glimmer in his eyes, the unmistakable pride. I can just picture it now, he mused, enthusiasm spilling over. A grand reception, chandeliers sparkling, everyone from the family will be there. It's just what they deserve. Every word felt like a lash against my already raw emotions, the knife twisting deeper and deeper into my gut. I forced myself to swallow the bitterness rising in my throat, feeling like an invisible ghost hovering at the table. Do they have everything they need? Maybe we should throw a little something their way to help, my mother suggested, her voice dripping with sweetness, the kind often reserved for a beloved child. I think we should, my father agreed, glancing expertly in my direction as if gauging my reaction. The tightening in my chest expanded, filling my lungs with unspoken anguish. Were they really so oblivious to the years of hard work, the sacrifices I had made? I could not bear it. Can we talk about something else? The words left my lips before I could stop them, the tone sharper than I intended. My parents turned toward me, eyebrows raised in surprise, their happy bubble shattered. I felt the air grow heavy, the tension wrapping around. It felt as if the four walls themselves were closing in on me. Are you not happy for your sibling? My mother asked cautiously, the warmth in her voice replaced by a hint of confusion and hurt. Of course I am, I replied, my voice faltering, letting my fork drop onto the plate with a resounding clang. It's just you talk about this wedding as if it's the only thing that matters. What about everything else? What about me? The desperation rose in me like a volcanic eruption, but I clamped down on it before it could fully unleash. Honey, we always support you, my father said gently, but there was that unmistakable edge of dismissal in his tone, the kind that made my insides churn. I seethed silently, my vision blurring around the edges. They did not see. Dinner lasted forever, filled with conversation and laughter from my parents that only charged the sorrow in my heart. I barely touched my half-finished plate, and the air grew hotter around me, heavy with unspoken words and unacknowledged pain. My mind drifted as I waited for the moment to escape this scene, the reality I felt suffocating inside. Friday night had become an unbreakable cycle. The strings of my heart tugged tighter yet again. Later, when I finally found solace in my darkened room, I collapsed onto my bed, the weight of the conversation still pressing on my chest as I stared at the ceiling. My eyes flitted toward the light creeping through the curtains, illuminating the bank statement laid before me on my desk, tauntingly crisp and cold. The numbers blurred together as my mind clouded with betrayal. This paper, this document, was the final straw. My hard-earned money, my sacrifices laid bare against their lavish plans. Look at this, I whispered to the shackles of silence surrounding me, trying to summon a spirit for conversation. This should have been something else, something better. You let them walk all over us, and you just shovel it right back. My voice, usually steady, cracked under the weight of my emotions. The injustice burned like acid in my veins. The image of their radiant smiles flashed in my mind, filled with a joy I had yearned for but never received. All those years of wishing, hoping, and striving for even a fragment of their love and support hit me like a wave. I thought of all the projects I poured myself into as they remained blind to my successes, the awards I had earned, the relationships I had built, the countless hours I spent trying to prove my worth. The family support I craved never came. Staring at that bank statement, an icy clarity settled into my mind. I would no longer be the overshadowed sibling, the forgotten one. An idea began to form, chilling yet liberating. I would expose them. I would reveal their favoritism, their silent discrimination, and force them to confront this financial injustice hidden in plain sight. They need to see how they've failed me, I murmured into the silence, feeling a sense of purpose begin to grow. With each breath, my resolve solidified. My heart raced with adrenaline, the possibility of drawing light to their hypocrisy. I could collect the evidence, the documents, the conversations, and package it all until they were faced with the truth. This wasn't just about me. It was about acknowledging the scars of years past, the words left unspoken that had unknowingly forged chains around my spirit. their dream wedding would echo with voices that were no longer silenced. This was not merely revenge, it was justice. For me, for a child who deserved the same dreams as others but was constantly provided with fewer opportunities. My heart pounded as the night deepened, filled with anticipation for what I was about to unleash. I could feel the anticipation buzzing through me like electricity as I walked into the grand hall. The air was thick with an almost suffocating sense of excitement, the smell of fresh flowers and expensive cologne mingling together in a way that made my stomach twist. Tables were adorned with delicate linens and glistening silverware, each a perfect representation of the wedding announcement that was supposed to dazzle everyone. But today was not about celebration, it was about revelation. My sibling was planning to unveil their engagement, and I was prepared to unveil the truth. As the guests mingled, laughter echoed throughout the room, but in my mind, it sounded hollow, like the clinking of glasses that only amplified the discomfort creeping through me. I had orchestrated every detail of this moment with precision and malice, envisioning how it would all play out. The night before, I had shared the bank statement with key family members, friends who had enjoyed my siblings' company, but never quite understood what lay under the pristine surface. The sins of our parents had been buried deep, locked away like old family secrets. Little did they know those secrets were about to be unearthed. I caught sight of my sibling across the expansive hall, standing by an intricately decorated column, their beaming face framed by soft golden light. They were dressed to the nines, every button polished, and not a hair out of place. I clenched my fists at my sides, swallowing down a surge of resentment. Watching their blissful ignorance was almost unbearable. I imagined the moment they realized that the whispers swirling through the guest list were about them, not the fairy tale wedding they had envisioned, but the hidden trappings of our parents' actions exposed for all to see. Are you ready? A voice broke into my thoughts, pulling me from my reverie. I turned to see an old family friend, their eyes glimmering with eagerness. I forced a smile, masking the turmoil roiling beneath the surface. I wanted to respond, to play this part of the supportive sister, but I couldn't find the words, my focus sweeping back to my sibling, who looked so blissfully unaware that I felt a surge of satisfaction. As the crowd gathered, I waited for the opportune moment. My heart raced as I imagined their faces contorting with confusion and shock. Would my sibling falter? Would they beg for forgiveness? I imagined prying the words from their lips, a confession that the life of ease and comfort had come at a high price, a blackmail that had masked the truth for years. When my sibling finally stepped forward to address the crowd, the murmurs quieted down. A microphone hovered in front of them, glossy with anticipation. They flashed a smile, revealing a brightness that cut through the tension. I could see their hands trembling slightly, nervous energy bubbling beneath the surface. I gripped the edge of a nearby table, bracing myself. Ladies and gentlemen, my sibling began, their voice steady. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate this exciting moment in our lives. The applause that followed was thunderous, and I felt a swell of emotion wash over me, first envy, then a fierce determination. No matter how happy they looked, this wasn't going to end in joy. With a swift motion, I approached the microphone, my heart hammering, the noise fading around me as I focused on my sibling standing there, frozen. Excuse me, I said loudly, overriding the quiet clamor and silencing the crowd that was still buzzing about my sibling's impending engagement. My voice rang with cool confidence, even surprising myself. I have a couple of things to add to this sterling announcement. It seems fitting that the truth comes out when everyone is gathered together, don't you think? Gasps rippled through the audience, and the eyes on me turned wide with disbelief. Let's not pretend everything is gold and glitter, I continued, taking a step closer, the adrenaline coursing through my veins like fire. Because it isn't. For years, my sibling has enjoyed the lavish gifts, the gentle caress of our parents' hidden wealth, wells that many in this room do not even know about. Your money does not belong to just one of us, and it is high time everyone here understands it. What are you talking about? My sibling blurted, their face paling as they shot me a desperate look. This isn't the time. The time is right now, I pressed, unable to stop the rush of vindication. You see, our parents kept a secret bank statement hidden away. A stash of money, nurtured over years, but not for the reasons you think. You've prospered while the rest of us were left in the dark. Time to share the love, or at least the wealth. I gestured dramatically as I revealed the document I had printed and slipped into my pocket. This isn't what this day is about, my siblings shouted, their composure crumbling before my eyes, but the crowd was on me now, murmurs of disbelief flooding the air. Family members leaned in closer, disappointment carving grooves into their brows. Friends who had gloated my siblings' brilliance began to peer into the depths of the lies. What do you mean? Came a voice from the back, cautiously intrigued. You want to know what I mean? I spun around, my voice rising. How about the hidden accounts? The money you flaunted as if it were your own while the rest had no idea? My sibling enjoys the perks of this family wealth while using connections and ignoring the truth. I glanced at my sibling, who could only stand in stunned silence as I peeled away layers of deception. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. The faces of our relatives transformed from blissful joy to disbelief, eyebrows furrowed and mouths agape, as reality began to settle in. I relished the tension, feeling the heat of satisfaction wrap around me. You don't deserve this life built on secrets, I shouted, my heart racing and my pulse pounding with adrenaline as I saw their dreams start to dissolve into a nightmare. In this moment of chaos, I had taken my painful past and turned it into a weapon, the truth. Enough, my sibling cried, voice breaking, eyes brimming with unshed tears. Just stop. This is not how family is supposed to be. I acknowledged their plea for a fleeting moment, but my resolve hardened. Perhaps you should have thought about that before you hid the truth. Maybe now you can understand. And in that chaotic gathering, born of manipulation and unmasked truths, I watched the realization wash over my sibling's face, horror mixed with the remnants of dreams shattering. This was my moment of vindication, when I would not allow to be undermined by the illusions that once bound us together. I stood tall and unyielding in front of a room full of witnesses, my heart racing with the radiance of a hard-earned victory. I had shown the depth of betrayal, and now, finally, everyone would see the truth. The fallout was immediate and chaotic as the first whisper rippled through the room. I stood at the edge of the gathering, my heart pounding yet steady, a wild mix of fear and exhilaration brewing within me. It felt oddly thrilling to release the truth. Relatives huddled together in small clusters, their eyes darting towards my sibling and me, their curiosity ignited like a bonfire in the dry woods. I gripped the edge of the table, fingers curling into fists as I watched the bewilderment wash over their faces, replacing the usual smiles and laughter that filled our family gatherings. What do you mean you didn't know? The harsh voice of an aunt cut through the murmur, sharp as glass. Her eyes bore into my sibling, who stood frozen like a deer caught in headlights, mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words. Are you saying you never noticed how hard Aurora worked for everything she got? I mean, I knew she worked hard. My siblings stumbled, their face reddening, but I could tell they were struggling to maintain their composure. But it wasn't a competition. Our parents just showed me extra support because you are their favorite? Another relative interjected, her finger stabbing into the air, anger simmering just below the surface. Honestly, it's disgusting how you have sat there and reaped the benefits while disregarding what your sister has gone through. Don't you think it's time to acknowledge your privilege? Privilege. The word struck deep, resonating through the walls of the room, bouncing off the ears of everyone present. I leaned back into the shadows, pressing my back against the cool wall as the air crackled. My heart was hammering, but this time it was fueled by empowerment. I was no longer the invisible sibling, the one who labored in the background while the spotlight shone on another. This was my moment of reckoning, and I could feel the tides shifting. My parents stood awkwardly off to the side, their expressions a mix of disbelief and defensive posturing. My mother's hands trembled as she clasped them before her, lips pursed into a tight line. This isn't necessary, she said, voice trembling slightly. We love both of our children. It's just different circumstances. You don't understand everything. Love doesn't just justify favoritism. A cousin chimed in, crossing her arms tightly against her chest, her own eyes dark with indignation. You've set a terrible example. No wonder Aurora feels this way. She has every right to be angry. I could hardly believe my ears. It felt surreal, like I was watching a play unfold before me. The room buzzed with anticipation, and despite everything, I felt a flicker of warmth, a burgeoning sense that my feelings were being validated. How could you sit there pretending everything was fine while I poured my heart and soul into this family? I finally spoke, my voice loud enough to pierce through the chaos. Their heads snapped towards me, and for a moment, silence fell like a blanket. I reveled in it. I sacrificed so much. While you were given everything, I had to fight for any recognition. I may have been quiet about it, but I never stopped working. Stop, my sibling finally managed, their voice strained, a sharp contrast to the cacophony of shouting voices around them. This isn't fair. You can't just ruin our family because of your bitterness. This isn't right? Bitterness? I echoed, feeling a hot wave of emotion wash over me. You think this is bitterness. This is the truth. I couldn't keep quiet any longer while everyone celebrated you and your achievements. It is time everyone hears how things really are. My own voice flared, strong and unrestrained in a way it had never been before. I wanted to make them understand, to finally expose the intricate web of neglect and favoritism. Suddenly, my mother interjected, her voice cracking like thin ice. You know we always wanted the best for you, too. We didn't mean for you to feel this way. How can you say these things now? Look at this family, look at all of us. Look at how you've raised us. I shouted back, the anger coursing through me, an intoxicating rush pushing me forward. You created this divide. You wanted me to be the quiet, diligent one while you made it easy for my sibling. All those lies in birthday cards and holiday dinners. Be happy for your sister. Where were you when I needed you? As my words hung in the air, a ripple of disbelief surged through the relatives. Some whispered incredulously, while others shifted, shaking their heads. I felt the weight of judgment shift, and the satisfaction edging at my heart was nearly euphoric. I was standing tall, no longer looking for approval but demanding recognition. I could hear my sibling fumbling with their thoughts, clearly struggling, their expression mingled with confusion, anger, and maybe a hint of guilt. Maybe you never wanted to see me anyway, my siblings spat out, frustration swirling in their tone. You always were in the background, never trying to fight for what you deserved. Fight for what I deserved? I replied, feeling both hurt and liberated. I have fought for years. It just took me this long to realize that fighting was not enough and I didn't have to hide away anymore. The bitterness, it seeped out like an old wound finally bearing itself to the light. I think we need to take a break, my mother's voice emerged, though barely coherent through the waves of tension. Everyone just calm down for a moment. We can talk about this later. The words felt like weak glue trying to hold a crumbling structure together. I couldn't tell if I wanted to laugh or cry. There was no rebuilding from this chaos, but I welcomed it. This was the reckoning. Later, a nearby relative scoffed, shaking her head in disappointment. There is no later in this family. If these conversations scare you, maybe it is time for a hard look at things. In that moment, I could feel their world beneath them shift and crack. I stood taller, the empowerment filling my lungs like fresh air, giving me strength I had desperately craved for years. I watched my siblings' world erupt, all the praise they had soaked in now crumbling into dust, and somehow it felt liberating. I felt free. As I took a deep breath, absorbing the chaos, I began to realize this was more than revenge. This was my moment of liberation, a resetting of balances, a dawning of a time where I was no longer hidden, unheard, or the family's secret. I was finally stepping into the light, my sister's shadow no longer burrowing me into darkness in the days following the confrontation. I stepped into a world that felt both unfamiliar and exhilarating. Each morning, sunlight seeped through the curtains, illuminating my room with a warmth I had not felt in years. I lingered there, a comforter still pulled against my body, fighting the urge to jump out of bed. But I wasn't hiding anymore. A small smile crept across my face as I thought about how I had finally found my voice. Today, the atmosphere in our house was different. The usual dread I felt upon arriving home was replaced with a sense of cautious hope. As I made my way toward the dining room, I paused briefly in front of the family photos that lined the hallway. A million memories played back like an old film. Family vacations, birthdays, and special moments that echo with a laughter long since faded. I found a little pride in the way I held my head a bit higher now. I was ready to confront whatever awaited me at the table, emotions swirling in my gut in a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety. Hey, Aurora, can you come sit down for a minute? I heard my mother call from the dining room. Her voice surprised me, a kind of gentle curiosity woven into her tone. I nodded to myself as I approached, each click of my heavy footsteps echoing like the heavy beats of my heart. The dining table, set for three, looked almost pleasantly ordinary. There were no signs of tension, just the usual array of home-cooked favorites, barbecued chicken, a vibrant salad drizzled with vinaigrette, and the aromatic scent of freshly baked bread that seemed to envelop the room. I noticed my sibling glancing up from their place at the table, their face still marked by apprehension, mixed with confusion, as if still piecing together what had just happened to us as a family. Please sit down, my father said as he gestured toward the empty chair across from him. The light above illuminated the earnest expression on his face, and I caught a glimpse of the softness in his usual stern demeanor. We want to talk. I took my seat slowly, the chair creaking beneath me. A million thoughts swirled in my head. Were they finally going to acknowledge everything that had happened? My mother reached across the table, her hand trembling as it rested over mine, and I could feel the warmth of her skin, the tremor of uncertainty. First, I want to apologize to you, she started, her voice catching slightly. These past years, we took you for granted. I took you for granted. Her eyes glistened, holding back tears as she continued. It breaks my heart to think of how much I missed in your life, how much I overlooked your hard work and accomplishments. It was unfair. I glanced at my sibling, their eyes wide with surprise as they took in our mother's words. Despite the heaviness in my chest, I felt a flicker of relief. She was finally admitting it, finally recognizing my journey instead of pretending I didn't exist. Thank you, I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. This means a lot to me. My father leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table, fingers intertwining. I too have been blind in many ways, he confessed, and I want to do better. You both deserve to be seen and celebrated. There was a sincerity in his tone that set my heart racing, Could this really be the beginning of a new chapter? That's all I've ever wanted, I said, my voice a little louder now, filled with something like hope. I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts, letting them pour out like a fountain. All these years, it felt like I was invisible, like my achievements didn't matter, like I was in the shadow of someone else. It hurt more than you know. There was a moment of silence. Several seconds felt like an eternity as we sat across from one another, my parents and my sibling, absorbing the weight of my words, allowing them to settle into the atmosphere. My mother reached for a nearby napkin, whipping it across her lap, her eyes blinking away the moisture that threatened to spill. We also wanted to discuss your future, Aurora, my father said, adjusting himself. He shifted, sitting upright like a man bearing the weight of responsibility. We want to help you pursue your dreams. Whatever support you need, we will provide. I was taken aback, the words spinning in my mind like a carousel. It was as if the earth itself had tilted beneath my feet. Really. My excitement threatened to break through, my heart racing faster. You mean that? Of course, my mother nodded vigorously, her eyes brightening as she spoke. You've worked so hard and we want to see you thrive, you deserve it. I always thought you just liked them better, I admitted, nodding toward my sibling, who remained silent, absorbing the moment. I felt like I was only there to fill in the gaps. They both looked at my sibling, and I could sense an unspoken acknowledgement pass between us. I'm sorry too, my sibling finally spoke, their voice soft yet firm, as if they were plucking up the courage to speak to a crowd. I didn't realize how you felt. I never meant to overshadow you. It caught me off guard, seeing them so vulnerable, so open. I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief washing over me as a tiny smile crept onto my face. Thank you for saying that, I replied, my tone sincere. I think we can all learn from this. We can all do better. In that moment, I pulled them both into a hug, feeling the warmth almost envelop me. The embrace was awkward yet soothing, a mixture of nervousness and healing. As we sat back at our places, I could sense something shifting in the air, an invisible weight slowly beginning to lift. Maybe rebuilding trust would take time, but this dinner, this single moment around the table, felt like the first step toward creating something better. I felt empowered, filled with gratitude as I thought about my future and what it could hold. I walked away from that table knowing I had been seen, heard, and valued for who I truly was, not just in their eyes, but in my own. Growing up, I always felt like a shadow in my family, living in the constant glow of my siblings' achievements. Every birthday, every holiday, while they received the latest gadgets and extravagant gifts, I was left with the bare minimum, sometimes even needing to buy my own necessities. I loved my family deeply, but the sting of their favoritism was an ever present reminder of my place in the world. The smell of old paper filled my nostrils as I rummaged through boxes in the attic, dust motes dancing in the beams of light streaming from the small window. It was just an ordinary evening, or so I thought. I didn't expect that something as mundane as reviewing old family documents would bring my world crashing down. The soft creaking of the attic floor echoed as I leaned over, pulling out a weathered cardboard box marked Memories. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside, there were faded photographs and letters, reminders of a time when everything felt simpler, happier even. I carefully sifted through the contents, tracing my fingers over the smiles captured in those photos, family vacations, birthdays, holiday gatherings. I remember sitting there, a mere background figure in all of it. Look, isn't that your brother's first trophy? My mom's voice chirped in my mind as I scrolled through a photo of him grinning ear to ear, holding that gleaming piece of metal that I had never once received. My heart twisted in a way that was all too familiar, the sting of jealousy mixed with love. What about me? I whispered to the emptiness of the attic, the ghosts of my family's favoritism hanging heavy in the air. As I continued hunting through the box, I discovered a thin, yellowed envelope hidden at the very bottom. The paper crinkled in my grasp as I pulled it out, the weight of it feeling strangely ominous. I realized then that I had never seen this envelope before. My heart raced with intrigue and apprehension as I peeled it open, revealing a bank statement that sent a chill coursing through me. It was like a punch to the gut. The bold numbers stood out starkly on the crisp white paper. $100,000. My stomach dropped, and I felt as though I had been punched in the chest. It was earmarked for my siblings' education and wedding. My mind raced as I tried to process it. What? $100,000? I muttered to myself, feeling the world slide beneath my feet. Did they really expect me to accept this? Anger bubbled beneath the surface as betrayal washed over me. The dreams I had nurtured, my aspirations that had been quietly stifled, suddenly surged forth like dammed water breaking free. Had they forgot my hopes, my desires? Every year I had watched as they celebrated my siblings' accomplishments. You are going to be the best, we believe in you, they would shout, their voices filled with pride. And what did I get? Hand-me-downs, my old toys, and the occasional compliment that always felt forced and hollow. We don't have enough, they would say when I asked for something I wanted, my heart sinking a little deeper each time. Maybe next year, sweetheart, they would add, but next year never came. Heart pounding in my chest, I closed my eyes, the envelope trembling in my fingers. I could see it all so clearly now. The countless evenings spent in the shadow of their family celebrations, the way they praised my siblings' every move while I quietly faded into the background. You should be more like your brother, they would say, oblivious to the fact that their words were like knives cutting deeper every time. I felt my cheeks flush with resentment. Guess I'm just the spare tire, huh? I scoffed bitterly to myself, chuckling sarcastically, though tears threatened to spill over. I opened my eyes again, staring down at the damning document in my hands. It was not just about the money, but about the love and support that had been so freely given to someone else all these years. The betrayal twisted in my gut like a live wire, sparking anger I had buried deep inside for too long. Suddenly, I heard footsteps creaking in the hallway below, and my heart raced.